All right, this is going to be sort of a short video that where I'm going to show you how you can take a data from, say, a dual band filter or a tri-band filter that initially looks basically all red, different shades of red. Now I have a tri-band filter, so the end result with a dual band filter might be slightly different than a tri-band filter, but I think it's going to be pretty close to what I'm showing you here with the tri-band filter. But what I'm saying is, when you take a picture with a tri-band or dual band filter, what happens is, if I auto stretch this image, you get a lot of red. And this is typically how people post pictures with dual or tri-band filters, just different shades of red, which is pretty good. It's not necessarily like a bad picture, but it's kind of boring because it's just all different shades of red. And a lot of people just, have a dual or tri-band filter and all their pictures are red, every single picture is red just about. And it gets a little monotonous, right? And I was guilty of this for a while too. So what you do is, by the way, I'm assuming that you know how to run StarNet, because I had another video on how you, run Gra Expert to take care of gradients and denoise. It also has deconvolution now, which I might make another video on at some point. And you bring this thing, you bring your stretch, sorry, not your stretch, but you bring your not your linear fits file. Sorry, I can't talk today. You bring your linear fits file from Gra Expert into Siril, and then you run the color balance thing that I showed you in the other video by just taking a area that appears to be black and then running the color calibration here until you get a lot of hydrogen alpha to show up. And yeah, I went over all this in my first Siril video. And then you run StarNet and you get the starless image here. So what you do is you stretch the red image as you would, as I went over in that other video. If it's a high dynamic range target, like this is pretty high dynamic range. This is pretty bright. The dust is pretty dim around it. But anyhow, you stretch it like normal, just as I showed you in the other video. Then what you do, so you stretch it, and let me just auto stretch this. This is a bad stretch. And normally I would take a lot of time to stretch this properly, but just for the sake of making this video quicker, I'm just going to auto stretch this. I never auto stretch. But again, to make this video quicker, I'm going to auto stretch. So that's a very bad stretch, but it's a stretch of the red image. So then what you do is you save this as a TIFF file, right? The red image, what you normally get from a dual band or a tri-band filter. Okay, then you go back to before you stretched it. So either reload in the starless picture or just go back to when it was linear. So this is the linear image again. So this is what you do to get a second image, which we're going to combine together with the first image. Okay, so what I do is, again, I go to manual color calibration like I showed you in the first video. The difference is you pick a dark area like this with the starless image. Hit this, use current selection, do background neutralization. That shouldn't change much because you already sort of did that to get the red image. But the difference is you highlight a chunk of the image that's basically red and white. If you can get some white in there, that helps a bit. So like this, I'm just going to pick a gigantic box that has a lot of red in it and a little bit of white. The white isn't necessary, but it helps balance the whole image, as you'll see in a second here. And then I click use current selection over here, and I hit apply. So that changes it quite a bit. It changes it to a much bluer image. In fact, if I then close this, I go back to linear, and I start stretching just a little bit because that's overstretched. So let me point out something. When you overstretch, right, these white areas these areas here become white because they're overstretched. If you don't stretch this much, these areas here will have color. Right now you can't really see that color because it's too white. That's one of the problems of overstretching. So let me just show you a little bit what it's going to look like if you stretch it properly. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because basically you're going to stretch it exactly the same way as I showed you in the first video. The difference though is the colors will be completely different. So this is what I did in the first video. I showed you how to use the arcsine stretch to start with. And then you do a couple stretches with arcsine. See? There's definitely some light blue in here, cyan, some red and orange. And if you stretch it properly, I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Now, the one thing you have to pay attention to is not to clip the blues here, because when you balance the image like this, when I highlighted all of the Eagle Nebula and, did what I just showed you, you more or less color balance it. So the peaks are all aligned. Before, the red peak was way out in front of the blue peak, and then you could, clip some of the blue because a lot of it was just background, but now it isn't background. So you got to be careful to not clip too much blue. Now, I find you can clip still a bit of the blue, but don't clip that much blue when you're doing this stretch, right? Be mindful of that. What I mean by clip the blue is don't let the left side of this thing where the blue is go into the left side of the histogram here. Okay, so let me move the, oops, what did I just do? Oh, I didn't apply the stretch, my bad. All right, let's do this again, sorry. Okay, so I got to apply the stretch first, sorry, I forgot to do that. Let me move this over a bit, and you start seeing, the colors come out. So then we just do a super quick stretch. Like, I'm not really paying huge attention to the highlights and everything. Normally, I would take a lot longer to stretch this image, but I just wanted to give you an idea how it looks. Yeah. So you're going to find, though, that the background is going to be very hard to stretch, but don't worry about that. In other words, let me show you quick. If I do a really big stretch, just to show you what I'm talking about. Normally, I wouldn't do this big of a stretch, but I want to show you what I mean. The dust, which showed up very easily in the red picture, it was all around. It's going to be blue. There's going to be a lot of blue here. And that blue is going to be hard to stretch without getting a lot of noise. So what I'm trying to say is don't worry about stretching the background that much. We're not going to need to stretch it that much. Worry about stretching the things with color in it, right? And don't overstretch the things with color because you'll start to lose the color. See, right now it's light blue, but if I really stretch, it becomes white, right? You don't want that, right? You want to keep the color, keep as much blue as you can for the brightest regions. And don't worry so much about the fainter dust for the blue image. So again, I'm not really stretching this perfectly because I want to get to the next step. But basically, you stretch the blue, what I call the blue image, or the bluer balanced image, as best as you can, paying attention to the brighter areas and trying to really sort of accentuate the blue color and also sort of this orange color that you don't get in the red, because it's usually just red. But you'll see orange, you'll see blue in here if you do it correctly. So then you save this as a TIFF and you call it something else, like the blue. You just name it blue or something. So you have a red stretched image and you have a blue stretched image. Okay, so then what I do is I take both of those images into Affinity. So I've already done a proper stretch of the red and the blue. So this is sort of a proper stretch of the red. This is a proper stretch of the blue. What it should look like. And you can see that the dust around here is blue and it's quite faint compared to this. I mean, here it really stands out, right? This is what I'm saying. So don't worry about getting this bright. Worry about getting the colors to come out. right? That's what you want to worry about for the blue one. Then this is what I do. So this background is too blue. I like the red in the background here, but I also like the coloration in the middle here. So you blend these two pictures together to get the best overall picture. There's all sorts of ways you can do this, but I'll show you one way. So what I do is I copy the red picture. So I just Control C, or you could hit right click on the background and hit copy. Same thing. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is go to the blue picture, click the background, for the blue picture over here in the layers, copy, and you can experiment with this. There's other ways to do this, and it's all up to you. You can do different, something different than I do. What I do is I copy the red, I paste the red channel twice. So hit Control V, that pastes the red channel twice. Then what I do is I turn one of them off, and I turn this one into a luminosity layer. So you click on this, go down to luminosity. So what does that do? What it does is it uses the red as a luminosity, and it makes the darker areas here brighter because it's using the red as a luminosity layer. And the reason why I'm using red as a luminosity layer is because it's far brighter than the blue picture was initially. This is the blue picture initially. So it brightens up the fainter areas, gives it fills in the mid-range basically. Now you can adjust this. If it's too much, you can bring it down to however you want it to be. Like maybe something like this is good. Then what I do is I click on this layer I clicked off, and I either do a screen or sometimes I just do normal. Like I don't change it. So by default, it's normal. Or you could do screen, or you could do add. Although add seldom works. It's usually screen or normal. And what I'm going to do with this screen or normal is add in more red. So right now you can't see any of the blue here. So what I'm going to do is turn down this. So what this is doing is it's adding more red in, but still keeping the blue here. So again, you can bring this down a bit to wherever you want it to be. And then you get sort of the best of both worlds. You get the blue in the middle, and you get more of the red on the outside. Now I said you can also do normal, and that also works. It gives you sort of a stronger effect, but it also works. It gives you more red. See, this is the original blue, and this is with those two things, right? So you sort of get the best of both worlds. And then what you can do is you can, tweak the blues some more. For instance, if you wanted to make the cyan, this color in the middle, pop, you can. So then once you have this to how you like it, you can then do all the tricks I showed you in another video with Affinity. You can merge visible. One of the things you can do is play with the saturation. So that's about cyan. So let's boost that up and see what happens. Yeah, so now you're getting more cyan in there, right? And then you can tweak the colors however you want. But you see the difference, though. I mean, the original picture was this. I mean, this is what you normally get out of a dual band or a tri-band filter. Just all different shades of red. It doesn't necessarily look bad. I mean, I did pictures like this for a very long time, and I was pretty happy with these pictures. But I think these pictures right here are a little more interesting. Now you do have some blue in the background, which you can kind of get rid of by playing around with the black point. I don't really mind this blue in the background to tell you the truth. I mean, you might want to turn it down a bit. Like for instance, if you go to levels, you can clip the blues just a bit. Don't clip them too much. But these are the darkest blues. So these are the background blues. So if you clip them, just a bit like this, you know, it gets rid of some of that, makes it darker. You can do that or just leave the blue in. I don't think it's that bad with the blue in the background. So that's a trick which I learned over the last few months, and I've turned a lot of my red, boring, typical Triband filter pictures into these much more colorful pictures, as you can see. So this works for any sort of red picture, you know. A lot of the times you see the rosette, for instance, with a Dualband or Triband, and it's just red, you know, solid red. And it looks cool because the rosette looks cool. But it's much more interesting if you do the blue. In fact, let me see if I can find it quick. It's buried here somewhere. Let's see if I can find it quick. Yeah, so this is a typical rosette. I guess just open it. Yeah, I mean, this is like a typical rosette picture, right? It's just all different shades of red. But I did this recently. Now, I kind of went crazy on the colors. There's a little bit more noise in the background than I like. But, you know, it's clearly, I think, more interesting. Even with the blue in the background, I think it's a better picture than the all red picture. So anyhow, it's just a trick you can use that I've been using to, again, turn my red pictures into something a little bit more interesting. All right, so that was it. That was the video. Hope it helps.